Hello and welcome to this installment of the four-part 2013 NISA Center Ramadan Dialogues. My name is Will Goodyear. I'm a research associate here at the Center, and I am joined today by Ambassador James LaRocco, Director of the Center. As always with the NISA Center, I'd like to reiterate that the views expressed in this film do not represent those of the United States government, the Department of Defense, or the National Defense University. Ambassador LaRocco. The Iranian nuclear issue has largely receded from the American political scene in recent months, but remains among the most pressing issues for short and long-term stability and security in the region. What lies ahead now that Iranian elections are over?
Well, this is a question that, quite frankly, has not been discussed enough of late, as Syria, Egypt, and other concerns and dangers have really crowded out the Iranian issue from many headlines. But it is an issue of extreme importance not only to the region, but to the world. Let's look at the Iranian situation and what are the possible outcomes. That's the best way to analyze it. Any of the outcomes are a game changer for the region and the world. If Iran acquires nuclear weapons, which is one outcome, we all know what will be the consequences of that in terms of its influence and its ability to change the situation. First and foremost, many of us, myself included, believe that this will be the end of non-proliferation efforts. Iran is a signer of the NPT. Other countries in the region like India, Pakistan, and Israel did not sign the NPT. So Iran acquiring nuclear weapons puts that agreement in great jeopardy. At the same time, an Iran with nuclear weapons, in many cases, people believe, will prompt other countries like Saudi Arabia, perhaps Turkey and Egypt, to also acquire nuclear weapons. So that, again, counter-proliferation, non-proliferation efforts will be shattered. The second is that diplomacy fails, and that, in fact, the United States feels compelled, as President Obama has warned, that if diplomacy fails, which is his first option, and second and third and fourth and fifth option, but it really becomes clear that Iran is going to produce nuclear weapons, and the United States, the President takes the decision that we need to deny them nuclear weapons through military means. That's a game changer as well. Many people have held conferences and workshops and seminars gaming what would happen. The repercussions would be enormous throughout the region, not just in the Middle East, but also in South Asia. In places like Afghanistan and Pakistan, everyone would feel the tremors from a military attack. And even then, this doesn't resolve the problem. So this is a game changer. The third is also, and people don't focus on this, but an agreement with Iran. What would this mean? Would this mean bringing Iran back into the family of nations? Not really. If the agreement is strictly about nuclear weapons, the production of nuclear weapons, or the peaceful use of nuclear energy, that is not going to be enough to bring Iran back into the family of nations. What they have done in terms of spreading terrorism, in terms of meddling into the affairs of the Gulf states and others, and in terms of opposition to the peace process. All of these need to be remedied. Now, Iran has a new president. What does this mean? We don't know. We have to see what the new Iranian president, who is clearly not the leader, but he is important in terms of Iran's face to the outside world. What will the supreme leader authorize him to engage in? Will he come to the table at the next meetings and present new proposals? Will he decide to come to the United States and reach out his hand, which I believe will be reciprocated by President Obama? Can we move forward to an agreement? The NISA Center engaged in an exercise to see what an agreement might look like. And I strongly recommend that people come to the NISA Center website to find a copy of this to study what I believe is possible. I think an agreement is the most preferable, but it will be a difficult agreement to reach because of Iranian actions and because all sides have demonized the others.
Given that the stakes you've laid out so far are extremely high, why is it that you think President Obama has apparently chosen prevention over containment?
President Obama, again, I think reflects the feelings of the American people for generations that nonproliferation is always our goal. In fact, our goal is complete disarmament and elimination of nuclear weapons. That's a goal. It's more of an ideal than a goal in the real world, but it reflects the commitment that our nation and others have to nonproliferation. It reflects our belief that the horrors of nuclear war should never happen again. And what I believe is that the feeling, again, is that if Iran acquires nuclear weapons, this shatters the whole principle, not just the policy, but the principle of nonproliferation. So I believe that he is convinced, as are the American people, that we need to do whatever it takes to prevent Iran and to deny them from having a nuclear weapons capability.
Now, I'd like to go back to something you mentioned earlier, which is the interim agreement that the NISA Center produced along with its partners in the Strategic Studies Network. In your view, how likely is it that such an agreement could be reached? How do we get there? What are the main obstacles and challenges in its way?
This is a good question, and one that we explored in our discussions. To begin with, are those who are in the P5 and others, including Saudis, Israelis, and others, how committed are they to reaching an agreement? There is no unity of agendas here, but I do believe that there is a commonly accepted principle that we would rather solve this peacefully than through military means. In this case, I see the interests of all countries aligning in a better way, but only for a partial or interim agreement. This is not an agreement that will bring Iran back into the family of nations. This will simply be an agreement that allows Iran to take steps, initial steps to come back. It's a start. It will relieve pressure. It will allow for the removal of many, if not most, of the sanctions, and will allow the Iranian leadership to remove the shackles of the sanctions and to, in fact, re-engage with the world. And it is a first step to bringing Iran back into a clear leadership role that it feels it deserves and merits in the region, with its great civilization, its great culture, its long history, and its important geostrategic position as it is as a bridge between Asia, South Asia, and Central Asia, and in fact the Western world and the Eastern world.
You've mentioned a number of times that there's a possibility that we could restore Iran to the family of nations. What is your vision of the path to getting there, and what would that mean for the region?
This is a good question that I think people don't focus on enough, which is what would the region look like with a constructive Iran that in fact supports the goals of others in the region as it advances its own rightful place in the region. Now let me be clear, Iran had this before. This is not new. This is possible. And the Iranian Revolution has gone through many changes, and it can go through more. The end state for Iran has not been achieved, in my view, as we see so many young people under the age of 20 who have visions of their own for what they want for themselves and for their families. So my vision of Iran in 2020 would be an Iran that is using nuclear power for peaceful uses, an Iran that is a key element in the energy security of the world, In Iran, where investment is flowing in very large numbers to help develop not only their energy-related industries, but key industries that employ a lot of people, including carpets and various agro industries, and then also tourism returns to this very wonderful country. So many people would love to go to Iran to see that culture, to see that civilization, to see what has been done throughout the centuries. I see that as a possibility, but we need to work for it, and I think most of the world is ready for this. Let me also state that geostrategically, Iran is vital. The future of Afghanistan is linked to Iran, as is the future of Pakistan and Central Asia. But an Iran that is providing growth, just as countries like China and India now provide growth, can in fact raise up everyone else in the region. Right now it's lowering what other countries can achieve. Instead, it can be raising that for their people and for everyone in the region. So I see an Iran that in fact can be a real engine of growth for itself and for the region, and be a magnet of investment and trade. And that by the year 2025, I could see the per capita income of Iran as high as many of the Gulf states. This is an Iran that is worth working for its own interest and for our interests as well.
Thank you, Ambassador. Thank you for joining us. If you would have any comments or questions that you would like featured in a follow-up session of the Ramadan Dialogues, please feel free to message us on our Twitter feed, Facebook, or in an email on the following slide. Thank you very much.